Live on Channel 4, etc.
Yes.
Hello, good evening and welcome. I'm a little bit out of practice because it's been 2 months, I think, since the last one. Has it? Yeah, we didn't do one in December.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to the January Power Platform Virtual Happy Hour. Did I just say January incorrectly?
You said
Yes.
January.
January.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're calling January now. It's now January. And February is now going to be February. So welcome to the January Power Platform Virtual Happy Hour, the first one of 2022. And tonight we are joined by our esteemed guests, our wonderful, wonderful accessibility experts, Ashley Graham-Brown and Sir Michael of Hartley, I think is how we prefer to be referred. So and they're going to chat to us about some brilliant tools and tips and tricks that you can use to make sure that your stuff is accessible to as many people as possible. So before we get started, just a quick whiz through the code of conduct. I think most people are generally pretty well behaved, but for the benefit of those who may have a complaint or wish to make a comment, please be aware of others and understand that people can have different opinions, and it doesn't mean that one person is right and the other is wrong. It is purely a difference of opinion. Please be open-minded and welcoming and respectful, and be open to all points of view, because that's how we learn as a community. Be kind and considerate to others. If you hear or see of anybody doing or saying anything on one of these sessions that you think is unwelcome or out of order, or is not in keeping with how we generally behave as a community, then I would invite you to bring it to my attention or Carl's attention if it was me who did it, which it probably was. And we will deal with it accordingly, but rest assured that we don't ignore any comments or complaints. We do take them seriously. So tonight's agenda on Between Two Ferns and Four Idiots, which is, I must get some ferns in here, actually, I have to say. I think this is a really exciting topic, and I'm very, very glad that we're kicking the year off talking about accessibility. Ashley and Mike, do you mind, for anybody who's on the call or watching the recording that doesn't know you, would you mind giving us a quick intro about you and why you are passionate about accessibility? Who would like to go first?
Oh,
okay.
Ash first.
Ash.
So, hi, I'm Ash. I'm a dyslexic, dyspraxic, and autistic non-binary person, which is a lot of words, which generally means that I deal with a lot of accessibility stuff all the time. I'm a screen reader user, and I deal with a couple of other bits, and yeah. I'm passionate because it's annoying when people don't make it so I can use stuff.
Right. Well, which is as good a reason as any, isn't it? So, yeah. Michael?
Yeah, so I'm Mike Hartley. I'm also known as Heart of the Midlands, personal brand thing there going on. And yeah, so I've talked about mental health for a long time. But I kind of avoided accessibility because I have a degenerative spine disorder that basically means my spine is it's gonna crap out on me one day, and it has done twice already. I've had major surgery in my neck, so the whole of my neck is one solid piece of metal. And in July what year are we in? July 2020. So when we were in lockdown and COVID, I was rushed to hospital to have major surgery on my lower spine. As a result of my upper spine, I have nerve damage and living chronic pain, and have done for more years than I care to remember now. And my lower spine issue, I was within 1 millimetre of losing the use of everything from the waist down. 1 millimetre, and that was it. And it's only going to get worse. And I avoided accessibility because there's a sense of inevitability that my life is just not going to end up necessarily being great in terms of where I've been. And I didn't like to use the words disabled or thinking about it. But then I met Ash and we got talking about various things. And I also got asked to look after accessibility at Scottish Summit 2021. No, 2020. 21.
21.
21. What's 21? Years are confusing. And
We've got no concept of years anymore because we don't go out. It's
and I'm the kind of person that if somebody asks me to do something, I don't just pay lip service. I go all in. So I started doing lots of research, realised there were issues, got really passionate about it, and now you can't shut me up about it. All I talk about and rant about and encourage people gently and persuasively towards.
That was yeah. I remember you getting rushed into hospital. It was it wasn't fun.
Scary. It really was scary. Because no family around. Where they first put me, didn't have mobile signal, no Wi-Fi, so I couldn't even communicate with my wife. So she didn't know what was going on. She dropped me off at A&E and then had to leave me.
And never saw you again.
And never saw me again. Well, she wishes.
That's not true.
So yeah, it's scary, and I think it just sort of really rammed home just how quickly things could actually change for me. And then I'd be in a position where all of a sudden the things I'm talking about, I'm going to have to actually use like that. And what is the entry point? What is the learning curve to being able to use this stuff, especially from my point of view, coming from an able-bodied perspective, where I've spent nearly 50 years in that realm, having to adapt. How quickly would I be able to do it? And it's actually really shocking.
It is. And like the thing is with accessibility, if it's not something, accessibility tools, if it's not something that you rely on to interact with the world in general, then it doesn't necessarily bother you. And most people are not bothered by it until somebody they know or until they themselves have an issue with something. You were nodding there, Nash. You were going to say something.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of people I know when I've been talking about Windows 11, which I've just upgraded to because some of the features I just needed. There's so many people who are like, oh, it's just cosmetic. And I was like, no, I need the difference. But they don't see me needing accessibility tools. They're like, oh, but you're fine. You're normal. And I'm like, no, I use these every day. I have, I have a new laptop in front of me and I haven't put some bits on and I'm just starting to notice and being like, oh. And it's just like, it's a lot to remember all the tools you use and all the content and all the like filters and I need a list.
And Mike has a podcast which I help with called The Things We Don't Talk About. And we
You're
had
the co-host.
which
We're
we
partners.
had, well, I'm just along for the ride. I'm just the hair. That's all I am. We had Donna Sakar on there, and she was talking about neurodiversity. She made an excellent point that, she made many excellent points, but one of the things, or some of the things that stuck with me, is a person's differentiators, or the things that they don't do the same as everybody else, are not necessarily obvious, right? And the second thing is something that in one setting is considered maybe a difficulty, in another setting is a superpower, right? And I think that being aware that not everybody is able to see, hear, perform physical tasks, whatever, in the same way as everybody, in the same way as you, because you don't see the struggle that they go through. Nobody's walking around going, oh, I have to use the screen reader. Like, nobody does that. So, like, it's, it is reasonable for people to assume that you don't use it if they don't know about it. But why would everybody tell you that they're using it, right? And for something that makes such a big difference to the users, it seems bananas not to spend an extra 5 seconds putting a bit of alt text onto an image that you post on Twitter, just to make the experience better. And I know that this is a conversation we touched on the other day. I use a lot of pictures and GIFs and things like that in my tweets and communications with people in general. And one of the tools that I found useful, which I totally forgot to send you a link for, was I set a thing up on Twitter which will tweet you if you post an image without alt text on it. So I deliberately posted images without text on them earlier so that it would remind me. It's literally called Alt Text Reminder. It's
cool.
at ALTT. I'll put it in the chat if anybody wants it. And it messaged me earlier to say, hey, you posted a picture without any alt text on it. And like, it takes a few seconds just to put some text on an image. Like, why would you not do it if it makes it better for like a larger number of people? So, like, what are the hot button issues for you guys? What are the things that, the messages that you would like to shout most about in accessibility terms?
Go for it. I'll let you go first.
Alt text is big. Alt text is big. The other one is capitalize hashtags, and so capitalize every word in a hashtag. But also, if you can do that for your @ on Twitter as well, that would make my day 100 times better. Also, if you want to experience a minor bit of hell, take a screen reader down Twitter for 10 minutes, and you'll understand why I care, because it's horrible.
Right.
I often just have to turn it off because it's worse than actually not having it. And just missing out on the images. Right. Okay. For those that don't know, how does one access a screen reader on Twitter? So in Windows, there is a free screen reader called Narrator. So if you go into your settings and type Narrator and turn it on, you can fiddle with all the settings to make sure it's easy to hear. I recommend slowing it down a bit if it's your first time, because it can get a bit overwhelming, and then just open up Twitter and have a go. That is, yeah. Just literally have a crack at it and see what it sounds like as an experience, right?
Oh, yeah.
We've got to talk about the. Sorry, Mike. Go on.
No, I have to say I've got in the habit and where I will deliberately try and use different accessibility tools. So I'll try using screen readers. I'll try using keyboard navigation to reflect those who can't use a mouse. Honestly, it is genuinely eye-opening and frightening when you just realise. I mean, the capitalisation of hashtags. That was our first meeting. Me meeting Ash in a pub after me giving my very, very first talk at a user group. And Ash asked me if I capitalized hashtags, and I did not know why it made a difference. And I mean, you've got the Susan album party, which if it's not capitalized, and I am aware there's a minor on this call, and it's quite difficult. But there's Pen Island.
Pen Island
is quite a good one.
If you live in Italy, where do you get your electricity?
Yeah, Power Gen Italia. Or in a serious one, there was an InfoSec conference who released a free ebook called the Black Hat ebook. And they wrote it all lowercase, and it just Black Hate book. Now, in their case, they actually needed to use a hyphen. But it's things like that. Your message gets misconstrued anyway. Yeah. It's also, I mean, it's difficult for anybody to read long hashtags if they're all lowercase. It doesn't matter whether you're dyslexic, whether you eyesight's crap or whatever. It's difficult. You cannot separate the words all the time. So, and I immediately thought, right, I'm going to do this. And it took me 2 weeks for it to become a habit. And I think in the 2 and a bit years since I started doing that, there's less than a handful of times where I've missed capitalizing. Because it's now just, I mean, it takes no extra time. It's something really simple, but it makes a huge amount of difference. And it's not just on Twitter. It's anywhere you use hashtags. LinkedIn. Please, people, please on LinkedIn as well. Because, I mean, LinkedIn's website, that is a nightmare with a screen reader.
Yeah. Is it?
Oh,
is it really?
Well,
I've never done it.
If you think about Twitter, you've kind of got a little bit down the side, and then you've got all the content. So Twitter's horrible, but it does go down the page. LinkedIn, you've got stuff all down the side.
Oh, and it goes across.
Else, and yeah, and
poor.
some of the other social networks. Yeah, just let's not.
Hello.
Oh, that's me. Sorry. I don't know where that's coming from.
It sounds like something. It just reminded me of something like at the beginning of the Twilight Zone. You are now entering the Twilight Zone.
He's watching horror films while we're.
I was watching Netflix earlier, and if you leave it open, it then goes and plays.
Oh, it plays a trailer of something.
Yeah, trailer of something.
So, yeah. Carl, you had your hand up.
I was just going to say that the Twitter capitalization, hashtag capitalization, is just us being lazy. Really, it's something that if you were writing a letter, if you were writing a title or something, if you were doing all those things, just because it's become more commonplace and more frequent, I think we've just become lazy, because you wouldn't have made that mistake in a letter or designing a poster or writing something formally.
You'd be amazed how often people make mistakes like that in their CV, which is when they're trying to get a job. So, but like, I don't know that. I agree with you, but I don't know that it's necessarily laziness, and I'll explain for why. When I go onto Instagram and I post pictures up, and I write the hashtags, you go for the hashtags that have the most number of posts, right? But they're never capitalized on Instagram. And what happens is people just start typing and they hit because they don't want to type out the whole.
And when have you ever seen Twitter or Facebook or anybody else advertise hashtags that are capitalized?
They don't. And I've done it even before we talked about it in accessibility. I've always, well, I'm going to say always, but for a really long time, I've capitalized my hashtags, because I am one of those people that used to suffer from not being able to read them. And I would be like, I can't see what that says. And I'm like going, penis island, what? Do you know what I mean? And I just, so like, to me,
Trust you to go with that one.
I know, well, this is always going to happen, wasn't it? And so it's always been an issue for me that if something isn't capitalized, I struggle to read it. And I don't have any issues with dyslexia or reading stuff or anything like that. I'm, I don't, well, that I know of. So like, that was an obvious one to me to capitalize hashtags. But I agree with you, Carl. It is laziness. But if you start typing a hashtag and it comes up and you hit enter on any platform, in fact, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, any of them, it comes up all lowercase, because that's the way it was kind of invented, wasn't it? That was how it became a thing, and people are still following that format. But,
LinkedIn
we need to be...
does learn from the hashtags that you type.
It does.
Because if you do all cap or do capital words on LinkedIn, it will recommend those hashtags when you reuse them, and it doesn't take long to learn.
Correct.
It doesn't take long, which is really good. Saves me plenty of time, because now it's learned, I can just sort of select it and hit enter and then have to type. But yeah, you're right. It is exactly that. And
I also think, like, I use, this is pure laziness, it's not because I have any visual impairment, but I use a thing called, what's it called? Hang on a second. Read Aloud on Chrome, which just reads out the main content. And the reason I use that is because I think I'd used something before that was like a screen. It's because I like to listen to it. I actually absorb information much better if I listen to it than if I read it. I can read something 100 times and still not know what it's talking about. I'm that way. So I have a tendency, like, I will get my emails to read out, or I'll get the content of a blog post to read out to me. And exactly like you said, Ash, some of them are just like, it reads all the bits of the adverts and stuff like that, and you're just like, I don't want that, I just want the contact. But that Read Aloud seems to be quite good. It doesn't read out the adverts and stuff, but sometimes it goes mental at the end of a post, and for about 4 hours it'll just go asterisk, 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 just saying the word asterisk over and over. I don't know.
Try Edge, an immersive reader.
Do you know what? When I was using Edge as my browser, I did use Immersive Reader, and it was really good. Actually, it was very good.
Yeah.
But I don't use Edge anymore. It's a long story, and we won't go into one.
How can you say that?
Don't.
With your MVP awards in the background.
And do you know what? It's because of my D365 that I don't use Edge. We're not going to talk.
We won't go there. We won't go there.
The other thing to notice in screen readers is don't put loads of emojis next to each other, please. One emoji at a time, or different emojis. I don't care if they're 3 different ones, but if I hear the word, like, the one that comes up a lot on Reddit is they'll put like 7 red flags next to each other, and I'm like, I can't.
So does it just say red flag, red flag, red flag? Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes it will. And on some screen readers, it will tell you it's an emoji every time as well, so you know it's not a word, and it's repetitive and annoying. And
Yeah, I actually hadn't thought about that. That's a really good tip. What I did read today, which I thought was pretty interesting, I've just started playing Wordle, which is Martin Clanon's fault, and that they have a colorblind version of that, which I think is also awesome, because we literally, I know, Mike, this is something you've talked about a lot, but we still don't give much thought. When I say we as a collective, I don't mean like necessarily the people on this call, about using certain colors to create presentations, and this, I forget what percentage of the population is colorblind.
Oh, I can't remember that one.
I can't either.
It's more common in men.
Yes, it is.
I know that fact.
And despite a lot of common belief, it's not just red green.
Right.
Yeah.
There are multiple different ones, including blue yellow, which that one surprised me when I found that one out.
So it's 8%.
I sound like a clickbait header now. This one will surprise you.
This will shock you. Yeah. It's 8%. So that's like 1 in 12.
Yeah.
8% in men. That's 1 in 12 men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's going to be people that we know in our community that are colorblind. And as you say, it's not always red. A friend of mine was an electrician and he was colorblind, and he actually didn't know that he was colorblind for a long time.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah.
But
Because
I mean, at the end of the day,
This is it.
in working age adults in the UK, 1 in 5 have some form of disability, and will therefore most likely use some form of accessibility tool, whether that's physical accessibility tool like a ramp or a stick or a frame, or whether that's electronic accessibility tool like screen reader. 1 in 5, and that number's growing.
Yeah.
And that's 20%. So I mean, you think on this call, I mean, okay, we're kind of a bit skewed on this call because you've got Ash and you've got me on this call. So there you go. But in any room, 1 in 5 people will have some form of disability. That is a huge statistic, and I couldn't believe it. And I had to go and check it, and that's actually from the UN. That is genuine statistic from. I can provide the link for the stats.
Oh, that would be amazing. I mean, I think other things that I would like to hear about is like, I know that there's a lot of accessibility checkers built into like the Microsoft estate or the Microsoft tools. Is there some of those things that we, like, if we're not aware of it now, we should be, or that give, you know, a bigger range of accessibility for a tiny amount of effort?
There's a really specific thing that I always forget to use, which is Adobe have a color picker for colorblindness.
Okay.
Which shows you what it looks like for people who have 3 different types of color blindness. I'm not going to remember what all 3 describe. But I'll shove it in chat.
Yeah, please. Yeah,
which
that sounds awesome.
It will help you if you go on. You can just move the colors around, and then it will tell you these colors look too close for certain types of people. That's the color one that I know. Color can be a really hard thing if you don't have that issue to work out.
I mean, the good thing is that if you're using Windows, and it's even easier in Win 11, you can actually put on color filters on your screen.
Right.
So you can actually apply the filters that Microsoft have built to help those with color vision deficiencies, which is the proper name for colorblindness.
Right.
I only learnt that one. But it really is quite remarkable. I mean, I use the nightlight filter in Windows, or an app called Flux to put
that's
yellow.
The blue. Yes, that's what these are for.
Yeah, I did notice you've got a blue. You can kind of see a bluish tint on glasses.
Oh, okay. So they're
yeah,
like anti-blue, because otherwise I can't get to sleep.
Yeah. I actually find that if I'm sat in front of my desk all day, or in front of my screen all day, and I've not got the yellow filter turned on, I get a splitting headache by the end of the day. And it's remarkable just how much of a difference that does make.
I didn't realise it was making such a difference, the blue light thing, because I've had that on like my iPhone and my iPad and my laptop and stuff. Like at a certain time, I think it's at 6 p.m, it switches over to the anti-blue light. I forget what the theme's called. I know you just told me. But like even with that and turning the brightness right down, I still was really struggling to get to sleep at night. And I started wearing these a couple of months ago, I think, or a few months ago. And I kind of did it sporadically, but over the Christmas period and not working and not being in front of a screen all day, I really noticed a difference. Like I don't get a headache like you, but it really does keep me up. And bearing in mind, like, because I want to get good quality sleep, I don't drink caffeine. I don't, you know, I'm very aware of, you know, not having endocrine disruptors that disturb your quality of sleep and that kind of thing. But yeah, I really noticed a difference using these screens. There's a question from Philip. What are your thoughts on enforcing the accessibility requirements in order to pass a solution checker? I think that's awesome. I think it probably should just be enforced.
It should be.
Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah.
So I mean, this week, I'm enjoying the chat here, and then on Friday evening, I'm talking at the M365 below Chicago, and the talk I'm doing there is why we need to put accessibility first, because if we don't build accessibility in right from the beginning, it will never get added in, because we never have the budget, we never have the time, we never have the resource. It's too complex to add in because we've already built it. And it's the same, I mean, doing PowerPoint presentations, Word docs. I've just done this huge PowerPoint deck. I've written this huge document. It's going to take me ages to go back and add in all the alt text. Well, yeah, it is. But if you'd done it at the time as you were going along, it wouldn't take you all the time in the world. So, yeah, I strongly believe that these things do need to be enforced. The accessibility checker in Office shouldn't be as discreet as it is, in my view. I think it needs to be screaming out a lot louder than just a little thing at the bottom that says accessibility investigate that most people don't even realize is there.
In one of the Office things, and I don't really, it's in Word. If you convert something to a PDF, it will warn you before you save it.
It does, yes. And PowerPoint does as well.
Yeah, which is quite nice.
What does it say? Like, it's not.
Let me.
It warns you that there are accessibility issues with converting to PDF, basically.
Oh, okay, that's really cool.
I can put that. I'll put it on this computer.
But it's
yeah, it's like right on the save screen. It's like you get a yellow bar that's like, beware. This is not accessible.
Very cool. That's incredible.
But Microsoft Garage have just quickly Googling for it because I've got it on my work machine. They've just released a toolbar for Office, accessibility reminder, a Microsoft Garage project. Here we go. Allows you to put things in your documents to remind you. But for those who were kind of aware that Microsoft were looking at removing the download of PDF from Microsoft Docs, they were going to remove the option for downloading docs as PDF. And one of the prime drivers for that was the PDFs that they produced of Microsoft Docs website were not accessible.
Well,
now, a lot of people pushed back on it and said, we actually do use the download as PDF, particularly if you're on a long journey or you want to read a whole load of stuff. And I mean, I pushed back and I said, why are you getting rid of it? Why aren't you just working to make the PDF accessible? Which is what you should do. And enough people complained that they're backing down. And they have put on LinkedIn and Twitter today that they're focusing now on making the PDFs accessible. So there's hope there. There's hope there.
One of the other things that I'm not sure, again, it's not something I've delved into, but I'm pretty interested to know if you guys have any experience of this, is how to make things more accessible to those who are dyslexic. I know I've spoken to Keith, or I've heard Keith speak about this, and using certain fonts is better than others.
Yeah.
Like, any other hints and tips there?
It depends on the person.
Okay.
So the Open Dyslexic font works for a lot of people. It works for me. I also know a lot of dyslexics who hate it and would rather have other things.
Right.
The other thing for dyslexia is be aware that occasionally we put colour filters over things. So often my screen either has a very, very yellow tint
Right.
or has a slightly greeny tint, depending on the day, because gotta love it, which stops words moving around. So normally,
Really?
So one of the things that happens when I'm reading is that words will vibrate in place. One of the reasons I use screen reader is it helps, and the more tired I get, the more they blur. So I can end up looking at a screen of text and just seeing a grey and not seeing any words at all, because they've all vibrated so much that there isn't words. Colour filters can help that.
And how come, like, one day yellow, one day green? Is there any kind of, you don't know? Fair enough.
I have a sneaking suspicion it depends on my flux level. So as the day goes on with flux, I find myself needing to tweak the colour just so that, because I have both running. So I spend a lot of time trying to make sure it all works. And also it depends how tired I am. The more tired I am, the more likely it is green over yellow.
But my eldest lad, he used to have two colour filters. He had one that was blue and one that was almost a pinky purple, so not far off the shade that I've got in the background here, actually. And different days and different documents or different situations would require different filters.
Okay.
Now he's adapted, he's trained himself, which my brother did. Because my brother didn't get diagnosed for many years with dyslexia. But my eldest lad, he's managed to kind of push through his dyslexia. He reads a lot of manga, which makes me laugh, because he can actually recognize all the different Japanese alphabets and writing styles.
Characters are way easier.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Because they're pictures.
Yeah.
I learnt Mandarin at GCSE, and there were points where I could read better in Mandarin than English because it was just way easier to read.
Yeah, my son can't read Japanese. He can just tell you which one of the Japanese character sets they've used. But he reads manga. He watches a lot of anime, but he cannot stand it if it's been dubbed. So he has the subtitles on.
Right.
And he's reading the subtitles. But it's a really funny thing, because going back to what you were saying about using read aloud, because when you hear things, you follow it. It's quite funny, because I heard somewhere that there's a petition going through to help children with their reading, that things like CBeebies should have subtitles on by default. That's
a great idea.
Because they're so used to looking at a screen, they're not used to reading words. And they said it helps concentration. And I thought, I'm going to try this. And I actually, now, whenever I'm watching anything on Netflix, Disney Plus, whatever, whether it's in English or not, I have subtitles on. And it is so funny, because movies that I have watched for years, I've read subtitles and I'm like, oh, that's what they said there. Oh, now that makes sense.
Yeah. Where you think they said, yes, I've had that. Do you know what? Really, that's absolutely true. I watch everything with subtitles on, and Stuart gets really PO'd with me because he always turns them off. He's like, "Gosh, I was leaving the subtitles on," because I watch everything with subtitles on, to the point where there's a lot of people on this call that are going to judge me now. I have watched The Matrix like 3 times, I think, previously, and I still don't know what happens in it. Right? I just can't focus for some inexplicable reason. None of it goes in, right? So I watched it again recently because Stuart and I were going to go and see the new one, and I watched it with the subtitles on, and now I know exactly what happened. And I've said because I said to him before, I don't think it's a good film. I can't really concentrate on it.
We can be friends now that you know it.
The subtitles on.
I thought it was nearly over there.
Yeah, and now this time I was able to take the film in and focus and concentrate on it, and I'm like, oh, now I get, because I never understood why everybody liked it so much, because I just thought it was shite. But now I'm like, oh, now I get it.
The other thing about reading, if you're doing a lot of reading on the internet, I highly recommend Beeline Reader. It's an app that changes the line will start black, and at the end of the line it will go to blue, and then the next line will start blue, and then it goes back to black, and then it starts black and will go to red, and it helps stop your eyes. It helps stop your eyes skipping lines.
Oh, I see. Do you know what I use? I used to use a thing called, oh God, I forget what it was called. But it was a speed reader, and I use it on the Kindle now. On Kindle, it's called Word Runner, and it helps me to hyper focus on reading. And all it does is it just shows you one word at a time. And using that, I can get a reading speed of like 500 words a minute. Whereas if I read just looking at a page, it'll take me, 2 days to read a page. So I'll see if I can get an example up for you.
Yeah. Beeline Reader is what saved me when I was having to read research papers, because those things are not
great.
Friendly.
Do you know what? And this is a thing with Stuart. He'll read something about, let's say he read something recently about a medication that was something we'd been talking about. And I was genuinely interested in the content. He sent me a white paper. Honestly, if you put a gun to my head, I cannot read and digest a white paper. But if I have the screen reader going, the read aloud, and I'm following along, reading it, I will take the whole lot in. But if you literally just give me a page to read, like, none of it will go in. Absolutely none of it. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm like that. And video content, but like everybody has a different learning style, right? Some people are auditory, some people are visual, some people are a mixture of the both. And yeah, I think it part of getting to grips with yourself is understanding how you best take in and assimilate information, right? This is the I don't know if you can see that or not.
No, unfortunately not. No. So what? Oh no, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That helped me to forget when. Yeah, very fast. I can't follow that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you work up to it, like at the beginning. You just But so now, because I read like 2 or 3 books a week.
Yeah, you see that's the funny thing there, because when Ash gave me a demo of using screen reader, the speed that the screen reader can go at, that Ash listens to, I couldn't follow it. But the funny thing is, if I'm listening to an audio book on, say, Audible, if I'm going through a spell of listening to a lot of audio books, I can ramp the speed up until I'm for relaxing reading. Usually 2.5 times speed is my comfort level for enjoying and relaxing, which is what reading is to me. It's an escape. So I can build up to it. But if I've not listened to an audiobook for a while, I have to go all the way back to
Right.
Yeah.
to 1 times speed and then work my way back
0.75.
again.
It is a thing I think about because occasionally I'll have my screen reader on when someone else is in the room, and they'll be like reading over my shoulder, and I'm like, oh, I should slow this down because I have it quite fast, but I use it every day.
They're just watching you and going, she's not reading that. She doesn't understand that. It's too fast. Like, I think it's weird. What you're right, Mike. It's what you get used to, because I typically listen to like podcasts and stuff at 2.5 or 3 times speed, to the point where there is one particular podcast I listen to a lot, and I've only ever really listened to it at like that fast speed. And I saw the podcaster interviewed, and I was like, that's not his voice, because it sounded completely different to me. And I'm like, God, he speaks really slowly. Like, yeah.
I've done that with audiobooks, and I've seen the actor on screen. It's like, why are they talking so slow?
I've had a stroke.
Why is their voice so weird?
Yeah, it is strange. I'm not so bad now because I'm not traveling on the train anymore. But when I used to travel on the train, I used to get through so much content. And I really enjoyed that. Like, I not that it's relevant to this discussion, but I actually miss the commute for that. Like, you know, the amount of reading and podcasts I used to get through. So, yeah, that Beeline Reader looks really good. I might have a crack at that.
It's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Would I be able to apply it to people's CVs? Could I just like import a document?
I think it only works on the web.
But
I've never. If it's a Word document like that you have up in Chrome or in whatever browser you use, I think it would work.
It's in
Word
SharePoint.
Online.
So yeah, it's typically in a Word Online. Yeah.
So if it's in Word Online, I think Beeline Reader would pick it up. It also changes the font to Open Dyslexic, which is how I know I like that font.
I've got the web page open, and it does have the Word icon down at the bottom.
It does.
I haven't. I used to use it all the time, but when I swapped to using a screen reader, I use it less now because I haven't needed it for a while. But I know, yeah.
I'm still waiting for Apple to bring over the reading your emails thing, because I go for a walk in the morning and my headphones will tell me that I've got an email, but it doesn't read the email out to me. But if you live in America, it will read the email out to you. So you can go through your emails without having to look at them, which sounds like heaven to me, to be honest, because most of my emails are rubbish. I would just like to be able to whiz through them while I'm going for a walk in the morning. So
is that why you ignore my emails?
It's everyone's. It's not just you. Not just you. And also, I'm terrible at replying to messages. So, but we've talked about this. We've talked about this before.
Just a few.
We talked about that every time we do a podcast. One of these, I think. It's
a well-known thing that basically you won't get a response to an email or a message from me. So
yeah. The only way is sending carrier pigeons, or the other way is to actually send you an email saying, "New fantastic air fryer, try free now," and that'll get Alison's attention every time.
I would be straight onto that. In fairness, free air fryer or anything to do with free food, I'd be straight in there. Any other like accessibility tips, tricks, hints that typical stuff I think is and I think it's very important to be aware of this stuff, particularly when you're building apps and that kind of thing. But like I know that dyslexia, color enhancements, in the same way that we've talked about hashtags not being properly, like any kind of link that you include in anything, like it's the same thing. Anything where words are going to be merged together, if you don't capitalize, you've got the same problem, right? So any other things that we haven't touched on that you think are important or relevant?
There's one more Twitter bot to go follow, well to know about, so you can at them. Which is if you are worried about if you've put alt text on a picture that you've posted, or you want to see alt text of a picture. The bots there's 2 of them, which is I'll put them in, but it's at image alt text and at get_alt text. If you at those underneath a picture as a reply to a picture in Twitter, you'll get the alt text of the picture. I will
Very cool.
I'll put those in.
Yeah, the other one is GIFs. Like it took me I don't know why, I was very slow on the uptake, but I'm like, how do I put alt text on GIFs? And honestly, if you're in Twitter, it's just in the same place. It's just a little alt text box at the bottom. And like, I think also one of the things that was initially off-putting for me is with my pictures and GIFs and stuff, I was doing these great long, like paragraph long descriptions of and then somebody said that's mental, like you just need to get like the point of it across, right? Like it just needs to be it doesn't need to be this huge work of prose. You know,
I must admit, I sometimes find, and I don't know, I keep meaning to actually make a note of where alt text can be added and where it can't, because I think LinkedIn on the web you can do alt text, but in the app you can't, or something like that.
Oh, really?
The
LinkedIn app
something
is
like that. But the other thing to do is in a LinkedIn post, at the sort of end of the post, before you do all your usual hashtags, put alt text. Actually write it. And proceed it with alt text. The image below shows this. And on Twitter, if you can't add or you forget to add alt text, do a reply to your own tweet and say alt text for the image above.
That works okay for people, because that's a game changer for me, for the number of times I've posted something up and gone, I forgot.
Because when I'm using my screen reader, especially if it's the first reply, what I'll hear is image and then all the MacGuffin, and then the next tweet I'll get is image description. I'll be like, okay, cool.
Right.
That's nice.
And the thing is, it's better doing that than not doing anything at all. And I saw somebody on LinkedIn, somebody who's deaf, and I've connected with her, and she posted in a long post, and it was just part of a sentence, and she didn't realise what she'd said, and she said it's about progress, not perfection. And I just messaged her and said, can I pinch that? Her name's Meryl Evans. I did say I would accredit her every time that I said it. And
I don't think you need to. I think she's probably part of AA or something, because they say that in AA all the time.
But a lot of people who follow it have now started using it as hashtags, and it's so true.
It is, yeah.
You do the one thing becomes a habit. When it's become a habit, you learn something to add to that, and you've learned 2 things, and then you've learned 3, then you've learned 4, and you look back and you suddenly realise I'm miles away from where I began the journey.
It's like going to it's like anything, consistency is key, right? If you just take the action consistently, if you go to the gym, you don't have to lift 100 kilos every time, but if you go to the gym 3 times a week, week on week, then before you know it, you can lift more weight, or you've got, well, I haven't got a 6-pack, but sorry, go on.
The other thing is, if you are making like an app and you know a blind person's going to use it, then, especially if you know the blind person using it, talk to them, ask them, get them involved, because, and even if it's not accessible for anybody else, but it's accessible for that one person, that's making a difference, and that's a start, because you'll know next time you make an app, you can do it, and you'll know what you need to put in.
Right, and just do it at the beginning, like you guys said earlier. Like, I've had systems before where they've needed a radical overhaul, and it's such a massive undertaking and a huge expensive job to do it. Whereas if you just did those little bits, and as you say, progress not perfection, put all of that stuff in, or as much of it as you reasonably can at the beginning, then it's not like you haven't got to reinvent the wheel later on down the road, right?
Yeah, and the other thing I will say is you are never going to get it perfect. It's impossible, because what you do to cater for one accessibility need might make it inaccessible for a different accessibility.
Right.
And just as we're all different, irrespective of accessibility needs, it's not going to work for everybody. So don't strive to get that 100%, keep everybody happy, but listen, take on board what people say, adapt to your audience if you know what your audience is going to be. But where you don't know, try and just learn something new and try and hit as much of the audience as you can with it. So yeah,
100%. And Philip said, does anybody highlight their text and they're reading it? Yes, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to put a physical ruler up to my screen and move the ruler down my screen as I was reading. That was one I really used to do a lot. You can get virtual things that do it, but I still occasionally just put a physical line on my screen and be like, this is the line I read.
Yes. That's how you learn to speed read.
Yeah.
So,
and one thing that just sort of a complete slight curveball, but for those people who present talks, particularly over Teams and Zoom and what have you, I actually found out that much as I'm really proud of my geek kingdom behind me, and I actually love people taking the opportunity to find and spot all the Easter eggs. Yay, Larry!
that's a geek kingdom there. Yeah.
It's actually not accessible. The best thing from an accessibility perspective is to have nothing in your background.
Plain white.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a plain background, because somebody with ADHD can get distracted and they'll focus on what. And the funny thing is with that, I've actually sat on talks where I've challenged people to spot the Easter eggs, like the Maximus IT mug or the Scottish Summit badges or the lanyards that I've got up and the different pop. And I haven't actually realised that is actually not what I should be doing, because that's making the issue more pronounced for somebody who might have ADHD. So today I've ordered a green screen that I will be popping up behind me when I'm doing talks, not like this where we're just chatting, because we're just chatting, but on Friday I'll have a green screen behind me where I can just blank it out, which is frustrating because I want people to see my geekdom.
But you know what? Like, I can as someone that's recently found out that they have ADHD, I downloaded stand-up comedians set recently, and he's in his set. He has a word with bulbs, like in giant letters, taller than him, and there's bulbs all the way through it, so that it's all lit up. The word is actually, I can't remember what the word is. Anyway, you can see where this has been spliced from different performances, because on one of the letters there is a bulb out. And I honestly, there's great swathes of that thing that I just couldn't concentrate on, because all I was doing, I was looking for the bulb.
Yeah. No, that wind me up. I wouldn't be able to concentrate.
No.
Blurred backgrounds do wonderful things.
Yeah, I'm not actually quite sure how well the blurred background works with. Oh no, I didn't mean to do that.
I'm not sure either.
I'm not sure how well it'd work with mine at the moment. So let's have a
look at this.
It works well enough.
Well enough, but it's still a very noisy background.
The thing is, the advantage of blurring the background, it means that because I get attention issues, I can't try and work out what things specifically are in your background. It's just a color.
Yeah.
And that makes the difference a lot of the time.
Yeah.
See, this one would bother me. This one I'm here.
That I'd just lose myself looking at it dreamily.
Yeah,
and then I'd look at the background.
This one would literally. There's
Alison
no way. Sorry, I missed.
On that note, Alison.
On that bombshell, it's time to wrap up. Have we got Mike? You're talking when?
Friday, 7 p.m. So if you find me on LinkedIn, I don't know. Let me try and find a quick link. While I'm finding a quick link, has anybody got any quick questions? Because I really do want to.
Is there anything in the chat? Or has Ash? Have you got any talking engagements coming up?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not at the moment.
Okay. So while Mike gets the details of his session on Friday, there's the contacts for both of these wonderful, wonderful human beings. Thank you both so much for joining us. I've loved this session. I find it very, very interesting. I could talk about it for hours. Thank you so much for coming. And
Thank
that
you.
just remains. Is there anything else we need to plug, Carlos?
I don't think so.
I don't think
It's a bit
so
of a quiet
either.
month,
It's a bit
isn't it?
sparse. Yeah, it's a bit sparse at the moment, and it's a shame that Scottish Summit's postponed. Otherwise, we'd be plugging that. But hey, I think, and also Norway, which we're really looking forward to. It's also, but it's fine. I think it's sensible. So, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again next month.
And lovely seeing you all.
Lovely.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.